Welcome to the deep dive. If you're tuning in, you're probably interested in what really makes a classroom work well, where students are genuinely engaged.
Hmm.
Today, we're zeroing in on something fundamental, but maybe often overlooked, the power of really solid classroom routines.
Absolutely. It's like the hidden architecture of great teaching.
Right. So think of this as a look behind the curtain. We'll explore the science and the art behind these routines using insights from educational research.
And the goal is really to see how they boost engagement and, crucially, reduce that cognitive load we hear so much about. Practical insights for educators.
Exactly. We're not just talking theory. We want to understand how these predictable patterns actually free up students to learn.
Okay, so let's start there with cognitive load. It's a big concept in education research. We know working memory has limits, right?
Right, that mental space where you're actively processing stuff. So, how do routines fit in? How do they help with that limited space?
Well, think about walking into, say, a really chaotic environment versus one where things are predictable. The chaos demands constant mental effort just to navigate.
Okay.
Classrooms without routines can feel like that chaos. Every little thing, where to put your bag, what to do first, eats up mental energy. Routines automate those basics.
They make them second nature.
Exactly, like
Mm.
driving a familiar route. You don't consciously think about every turn. Routines do that for classroom procedures, slashing the mental effort needed for everyday tasks.
The sources often bring up the do now activity as a classic example. Can you kind of walk us through how that works, specifically for reducing cognitive load?
Sure. Imagine a student walks in. They know exactly where the do now is, maybe always on the board, same spot.
Right.
They know the expectation, start immediately, work independently, materials are ready. There's no what do we do or where's the paper? Mental checklist running.
Ah, so it removes those initial hurdles.
Precisely. That whole sequence is automatic. So their working memory isn't spent figuring out the process. It's available right away for the content of the do now.
And the contrast, the less structured classroom. What does that feel like for a student? It must be mentally taxing.
Yeah, definitely. Think about being in a meeting where things keep changing, instructions are unclear. It's draining, isn't it?
Yeah, you spend more time figuring out what to do than actually doing it.
That's it. Inconsistent procedures create that friction daily. Where does this go? How do I ask for help today? It all consumes that precious working memory.
Memory that should be going towards understanding the actual lesson content.
Exactly. So by clearing away that procedural clutter, you're basically paving the way for deeper thinking.
Okay, so reducing cognitive load is foundational, but routines do more, right? What about building academic habits and focus?
Hmm. Tom Bennett talks about this, how shared habits become sort of superpower.
A superpower. How so?
Well, when the how of doing things becomes automatic, how to enter the room, how to transition, even how to start an academic task,
Right.
students don't waste mental energy deciding how to behave.
They just do it.
They just do it.
Yeah.
That frees up their minds to focus on the learning, the thinking. It's like muscle memory for classroom life.
So it's not just about orderliness, it's about creating the mental conditions for learning.
Absolutely. And this applies to thinking routines too, like how we always approach analyzing a text or setting up a lab experiment. Consistency builds those academic habits.
And in today's world, with so many distractions, that focus seems more important than ever.
It really is. Routines help minimize those off-task moments, those little disruptions that pull attention away. They create a more focused environment.
The research even mentions screen-free time. Can routines help carve out those spaces?
Definitely. If you have a consistent routine, say for silent reading phones away, same time every day, the routine itself becomes the structure that protects that focus time.
It signals this is focus time.
Right. Students anticipate it, they adjust to it. The routine makes it a predictable, expected part of the day, not a battle against distractions each time.
Okay, that leads nicely into predictability and clarity. Why are these so vital for making routines effective? How does it make students feel, well, safer?
Predictability is safety in a classroom context. Knowing what to expect, procedures, transitions, even how the teacher will respond, lowers anxiety.
You're not constantly guessing what comes next.
Exactly. That frees you up mentally. You feel more secure, more in control, and therefore more willing to engage and take intellectual risks.
Our sources talk about the rollout speech for new routines, like introducing cold call. Why is that upfront transparency so important? Explaining the what, why, and how.
Well, imagine a new rule just appears. It feels arbitrary, maybe even unfair.
Right.
The rollout speech prevents that. Explaining why we're doing cold call, maybe to hear from everyone, to check understanding and how it will work, builds understanding and buy-in.
It demystifies it.
Yes. It turns something potentially scary into a known, understood part of how the class works. Clarity reduces fear.
And what about clear signals, like the in cues for call and response? How do they help?
Those consistent signals are crucial for participation. A specific phrase or gesture tells everyone exactly when and how to respond together.
Takes away the guesswork of, should I speak now?
Completely. No fear of being the only one or speaking at the wrong time. Everyone can join in confidently. It feels collective, supportive.
And all this, the sources suggest, helps students feel safe, successful, and known. Can you unpack that connection a bit more?
Sure. When things are predictable and clear, students understand what success looks like and how to achieve it. That builds a sense of competence.
Okay, the successful part.
Right. And consistency allows the teacher to really see the students, to notice their patterns, their needs, their progress, rather than constantly managing chaos. That makes students feel known.
And the safe part comes from that predictability and feeling understood.
It's exactly. Safety, success, feeling known, they all intertwine, creating this foundation for deeper learning and positive engagement.
Let's shift to routines designed for active participation and rigorous thinking. Silent solo comes up. How does that routine ensure everyone's actually thinking?
Silent solo is really effective because it creates protected time for individual written thought before any discussion. The silence is key.
Why the silence?
It removes the pressure to perform verbally right away. Everyone, even quieter students, has to engage with the prompt and get their thoughts down on paper first.
Well, it guarantees that initial cognitive engagement from everybody.
Yes, 100% participation in that first thinking step. It encourages deeper processing than just jumping into a discussion might.
And then how does something like show call build on that, say, for improving writing after a silent solo?
Okay, so after everyone's written silently, show call involves projecting a couple of student examples, maybe anonymously. Because everyone already thought about the prompt during silent solo, they're ready to analyze these examples. The whole class looks at them together.
Ah, so the thinking ratio goes way up.
Right. Everyone's evaluating, comparing, thinking about strengths and weaknesses. And participation increases because the discussion is grounded in concrete work from their peers.
And the offline rewrite routine, why is that step important after a show call?
The rewrite is where the learning really sticks. After analyzing examples and discussing improvements during show call, students go back to their own silent solo work.
And apply the feedback.
Exactly. They revise their own writing based on the insights from the group analysis. It ensures everyone benefits, not just the students whose work was shown. It internalizes the learning.
So it seems like even our questioning routines need that structure. The goal should always be high participation and think ratios.
Absolutely. Every questioning routine should aim to get everyone thinking, even if they don't speak aloud every time.
How do you do that?
Well, techniques like posing the question, giving wait time, then calling on someone like with cold call encourages everyone to formulate an answer mentally. It expects universal engagement.
Okay, let's talk about checking understanding and dealing with errors. The do now comes up again here. How is it more than just a starter?
Well, beyond setting the tone, a well-designed do now can be a quick diagnostic. See what students retained from yesterday or what prior knowledge they have.
A quick pulse check.
Right. But the key is an efficient review. Don't spend ages on it. Quickly hit the key concepts, address common mistakes you saw, then move on.
What about things like show me routines, mini whiteboards, slates?
Oh, those are fantastic for rapid checks. Everyone answers, holds up their board on cue.
Instant visual data for the teacher.
Exactly. You scan the room, see immediately who's got it, who's struggling, where the common misconceptions are, allows for immediate adjustments.
That brings us to the culture of error. Such an important idea. How can routines help make mistakes feel okay, even productive?
Routines shape culture. If the routine response to an error is curiosity, interesting, how did you get that? Not judgment, it normalizes mistakes.
It signals they're part of learning.
Right. Routines like analyzing errors constructively in show call or using no opt-out consistently reinforce that errors aren't failures, they're information. They guide learning.
And show call for addressing errors specifically, projecting work with common mistakes.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah.
You project an example, maybe anonymous, showing a common misunderstanding. The whole class analyzes the error, not the person.
Makes it less personal, more analytical.
Precisely. It becomes a collective problem-solving moment. Let's figure out why this approach doesn't work and what the right path is. It's visible, collaborative learning from mistakes.
Okay, let's switch gears to classroom discussions. The goal, as the sources stress, is learning, not winning. How do routines foster that collaborative spirit?
Clear norms established through routines are key. Things like starting with a quick, low-stakes turn and talk can set a collaborative tone.
Rather than jumping straight into a potential debate.
Right. And routines that emphasize active listening, building on ideas, maybe using specific sentence starters, reinforce that it's about collective understanding, not just proving your own point.
You mentioned turn and talk. Why are those quick, consistent partner chats so effective?
They're great because they're low stakes and activate everyone quickly. Gives every student a chance to immediately process a question and voice an initial thought to just one other person.
Builds confidence for potentially sharing later.
Definitely. And the consistency, knowing a turn and talk is coming, makes students ready to engage. It's a familiar, safe structure for initial processing.
What about managed turns within that? How does directing who speaks first help?
That's a simple but really effective tweak. The teacher might say, partner A, you start. It ensures quieter students get a chance to initiate.
Prevents the same voices from always dominating.
Exactly. It balances participation and encourages more focused listening from the partner waiting their turn. Small routine, big impact on equity.
And how does turn and talk then lead into better whole class discussions? What's the link?
It's like a warm-up or rehearsal. Students have already formulated some thought, maybe heard slightly different angle from their partner, refined their idea a bit.
So they feel more prepared to contribute to the larger group.
Yes, they're not coming in cold. The turn and talk primes the pump, leading to richer, more confident contributions when the discussion opens up.
The sources mention the crest of the wave for timing turn and talks. What's that about?
It's about finding that sweet spot. You want to transition from turn and talk back to the whole class, just as the energy and ideas are peaking the crest of the wave.
Not too early, not too late.
Right. Wait too long, the buzz dies down, ideas might run dry. Cut it too short, they haven't had enough processing time. Catching that peak momentum makes the transition smoother and the following discussion more dynamic.
And sentence starters within discussions. How do they help beyond just giving students words?
They provide structure for building a coherent conversation. Prompts like, I agree with, because, or to add to that point, or a different way to think about it is,
They guide students to connect ideas.
exactly. They encourage active listening and help students explicitly link their contributions to what others have said. It moves beyond just a series of disconnected statements toward a genuine, evolving dialogue.
Okay, shifting again to feedback routines. No opt-out. It's a big one. How does that ensure all students eventually get the right answer?
The core idea of no opt-out is that, I don't know, isn't the end of the interaction. The teacher doesn't just move on.
So what happens instead?
The teacher provides support, maybe rephrases, gives a clue, asks another student for help, or even gives the answer. But then, and this is crucial, they return to the original student.
The return.
Yes, they give that student the chance to state the correct answer, closing the loop and ensuring they've processed the information successfully. It turns a potential moment of failure into a success.
Why is that return step so critical for learning and confidence?
Because it reinforces the correct information for that student and shows them they can get it right. It counters the feeling of being left behind. It says, your learning matters and we'll get there together. It builds resilience.
And there are variations, right? Giving cues, having them repeat the answer.
Different levels of support. A cue nudges their thinking. Repeating the answer reinforces it through verbalization. The teacher chooses the scaffold needed for that student in that moment to ensure success.
Then there's stretch it, pushing thinking beyond the first answer. What does that look like?
Stretch it is about prompting for more depth. After a student gives a correct, maybe basic answer, you push further.
How?
With prompts like, okay, why is that true? What evidence supports that? Could you explain that in another way? How does that connect to what we learned yesterday?
Or even more open-ended ones.
Yeah, like tell me more. Or what makes you say that? Directive or non-directive, the goal is to encourage elaboration, justification, connection-making, deeper thinking.
Let's think about the longer view. The sources suggest that efficient routines free up teachers to build better relationships. How does that work?
Well, think about the teacher's own cognitive load. If routines are running smoothly, the teacher isn't constantly putting out fires or managing basic logistics.
Their mental energy isn't consumed by that.
Right. So they have more bandwidth to actually observe students, listen deeply, notice individual needs, have those quick positive interactions. Less time spent on search costs means more time for connection.
Okay, and what about something specific like hand signals during questioning? How does that help get accurate data?
Consistent signals like thumbs up for I have an answer, fist for I'm thinking, allow the teacher to see individual readiness without students just copying neighbors.
Prevents that herd mentality response.
Exactly. It gives a cleaner, more honest read on who is actually processing the question and feeling ready to respond. More accurate, formative assessment data.
And exit tickets, useful for immediate feedback, but what's the caution regarding long-term memory?
Exit tickets are great snapshots. What did they get today? Where were the immediate roadblocks? They're super valuable for planning tomorrow's lesson, but they don't measure long-term retention. Just because the student could do it at the end of the lesson doesn't mean it's locked in. Real retention needs spaced practice, retrieval over time. Exit tickets inform those next steps. They don't replace them.
Okay, briefly, how do all these routines fit into broader teaching models, like the DIIE model mentioned?
DIIE, diagnosis, intervention, implementation, evaluation, is a cycle. Routines are largely in the implementation phase.
They're how you implement the plan.
Pretty much. You diagnose needs, choose interventions, and then routines provide the consistent structures for delivering those interventions and instructional strategies day to day. They make implementation effective and reliable.
And the idea of aligning interventions with skill, will, and thrill, how does that connect?
It's about holistic learning. An intervention, often embedded in a routine, works best if it addresses the skill gap, what they can't do, taps into motivation, their will to do it, and makes it engaging, the thrill or interest.
So routines can help deliver interventions that hit all three.
Ideally, yes. Designing routines and the activities within them to consider skill, will, and thrill maximizes the chance of real engagement and lasting learning.
Wow, we've covered a lot. If you had to sum up the core benefits of establishing these strong routines, what would they be?
Okay, key takeaways. Routines drastically cut cognitive load, freeing up student minds for learning. They build focus and create predictable, safe environments.
Which encourages risk-taking.
Yes. They boost participation, enable rigorous thinking for everyone, provide structures for checking understanding and addressing errors constructively.
And support better discussions.
Right. Ultimately, they just make the whole teaching and learning process more efficient, more effective, and more supportive for students.
And it's crucial to remember this isn't about robotic rigidity, is it?
Not at all. It's about smart, intentional structures that support flexibility and deeper learning. They're the framework, not the cage.
Well put. It's about creating the conditions where effective teaching and real learning can flourish.
Exactly. Intentional design, consistent follow-through, always aimed at helping students engage, think, and succeed.
So, as a final thought for everyone listening, think about your own practice. Is there one area where refining a routine or maybe introducing a new consistent one could really make a difference for your students' engagement or understanding?
What's one small change you could try tomorrow?
And if you want to dig deeper, definitely check out the research. John Hattie's work on visible learning is a great resource, and Doug Lemov's Teach Like a Champion offers incredibly practical strategies. Lots to explore. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.